Hello to all of you. Today, with Gabriela Matei from Euro-Atlantic Resilience Center, we have a special guest from Georgia, Georgi Iashvili, an expert in cybersecurity. Thank you for coming to us and telling us something very interesting about cybersecurity, Georgi. Please tell us something about your career in cybersecurity and about your evolution like an expert in cybersecurity.
Thank you for having me here. Thank you for the interview. My name is Georgi Iashvili, and I'm cybersecurity strategy and governance professional, mostly working within the critical infrastructure resilience, protection, and helping and assisting the critical infrastructure in the region, Georgia, South Caucasus, Western Balkans, and Ukraine as well. So regarding my career, briefly, I used to be a former IT professional, despite there is no former and ex-IT professionals. And then I smoothly moved into the cybersecurity because that was my interest and one of the main interests. And despite I'm not in IT anymore, it helps me a lot that I had already passed and went through all the specific domains of the IT, all the specific professions, and kind of a IT engineer, a network and system administrator, database administrator, and these all things and my background experience within the IT helps me a lot when working with the bigger organizations or governments to plan and to provide the policy and setting up the policy within the cyber, because usually it's considered that the policymakers are people who are somewhere in a higher place sitting, and they only guide the IT professionals there, because the cybersecurity is still technically strongly connected with IT. But with my perspective, it's very, unique, and I'm really glad and happy that the situation turned out in that way, that I had a background within the IT, and when setting up the policies, when developing and elaborating some strategies for the cybersecurity governance, I'm always considering, is it doable, is it feasible, and this kind of experience for me, that I know each bit how it works, helps me a lot in this. So that's why I think it's very good for me, and it's very nice situation came up that I'm with that experience moving within the strategy and governance. Sometimes I miss that technical part of work, but anyway, that's something already passed. So mostly I'm working within as I mentioned, with the government organizations, with the state cybersecurity responsible institutions within the countries in the Western Balkans or Eastern Partnership countries. These support is for capacity building, for establishing processes, for provide resilience capacity for the agencies that are responsible for the cybersecurity of the nations. And that's something what I really think that it's very important in terms of the understanding the region we work and we live, because there is no cybersecurity for a specific company, there is no cybersecurity for a specific state. The only thing is we are in a cyber domain, and there is no strict borderlines, and there is one cyberspace we all have. So that's why working in any kind of cybersecurity project within any country in the region, I'm still feeling that I'm doing something for my country, and I'm still doing something for the society I'm coming from. So because that's something kind of a patriotic factor in this. Apart from my activities within the cybersecurity resilience and critical infrastructure protection, I also lead the course on cybersecurity with one of the Georgian universities as an associated professor, but I still regret that I don't have much time for that. It's a still part-time engagement because of my travel, because of my more attention within the projects I'm working on, but still I really like really like the connection with the students, and I'm always saying that to my counterparts, colleagues, and all the professionals, that the keeping ties with the youth is the must thing you have to do. The two main reasons: you are keeping the you are also personally developing and growing when you see so many bright-minded people from the youth coming to the cyber field. And the second one is also kind of giving back something to the university, giving back something to the community you're coming from, because you're just not doing something for a today or tomorrow, but also something for day after tomorrow, because these young people are the future. And I'm really happy when I see some of my students in some projects, and when I see that they're doing a much better job than I would do. So that's something subjectively maybe a bit harming, but also it's something what's inevitable and what we can do, and what's we have to accept that's the better way of building something, that giving the possibilities to the younger professionals, because cyber is the field when younger people do much better than we, because we were not born in the cyber environment. Maybe our parents think that we are the best in the cyber, but our next generations are, I think, way ahead of that. So main challenge with that, and main how to say the mission, what we can do is something to provide and enable the environment to our future talents to move into cyber, because the emerging cyber threats doesn't give us possibility to have these kind of relaxed working environment, because we are constantly attacked by the malign actors in a cyber.
And I have to mention something. Georgi is one of our newest associate experts for the Euro-Atlantic Resilience Center, so I had to brag about this.
Yes, that's also very very honorable for me thing that Euro-Atlantic Resilience Center accepted me as an associated expert, and we will. It's just a recent news, so we will prolong and we will resume our cooperation. Started in the last year within the some forum organizing and conference, leading the panels or participating in the discussions. But now I think we will move into more active and more intense cooperation, because the Euro-Atlantic Resilience Center is one of the, I think, promisable thing in terms of the regional development of the resilience in Eastern Europe, I would say. And I'm really happy that to be part of the EARC family, Euro-Atlantic Resilience Center family, from the very beginning. That's something what I really want to know, that in a year or two, when it will be something expanded, when it will be really accepting the member countries, representing representatives from the member countries, and it will expand. I know we have a lot of plans in that direction, and I will be happy to know that I was right in the beginning when it was all starting. And the cybersecurity is also very important topic for the Euro-Atlantic Resilience Center, and that's also underlines its role within the regional, and not only regional. Euro-Atlantic is not a region anymore. It just we can say it's a whole world, because Euro-Atlantic makes and sets the policies for the development and for security firstly, and resilience in the world. So that's why I'm really happy that Euro-Atlantic Resilience Center Euro-Atlantic Resilience Center declared that cybersecurity is a very important topic, and that's why it will be one of the pillars what the center will work through and try to develop. And in this regards. Provide consultancy, provide something research and think tank activities for the for the partners, which are the NATO, which are the EU, which are the governments, firstly the Romanian government and all the other European Union countries and partner countries as well. And I hope Georgia will be a member of EU soon, but even in that period when we are on the way, it will be very useful to get connected to the and get closer to be closer within the entities within the region and closer to the entities that are working on not a classic and traditional ways of securing and protecting the infrastructure and the country, but emerging directions. And this is the thing that Resilience Center is one of the innovative, I would say, and one of the emerging bodies in the region, and not only to be working on the issues which are very important for our communities.
Georgi, we would like to congratulate you for your activity and for your great expertise especially in the cybersecurity field. We'd like now to understand or to have not only a general overview, but to point out, to understand the main trends of cybersecurity in Georgia. But before this, please allow me to read something interesting about the strategy of your government for in the cybersecurity field, what they decided in 2021. So, National Security Council reported that the government has approved the country's first national cybersecurity strategy of Georgia for 2021 to 2024. The document established 4 priorities: developing an information society and cyber culture for organizations, resilient cybersecurity governance system, and developing a public-private partnership, enhancing cyber capabilities with a strong cyber workforce and relevant technical support, making Georgia a net contributor to cybersecurity internationally. So please help us to understand the future main trends of Georgia in cybersecurity field.
Thank you for the question. It's a really important one to mention that that was the third strategy for the Georgian cybersecurity, the national one. And this year, it has its last year of the activity. So the next year, we will have a next cybersecurity strategy. And now we are in the process of analyzing what was done wrong, what was done in a good way and correctly. So the priorities you mentioned are very important. That within the previous versions of the strategy, we call it like a paper strategy, because it was like on a paper it looked good in the first version and the second one as well. But the third one is very comprehensive within the action plans coming through the an additional the annex of the strategy with the responsible entities and so on, within the activities also detailed, described. But what we hear now, that in this version of the strategy, we first ever see that Russia is mentioned as the main cyber threat for Georgia. That's very important to mention. And also that's something the strategy brought the idea about the international cooperation, not only one way that international community would support Georgia within this field, and they are supporting, including Romanian counterparts, including European Union and NATO, of course. They're helping a lot in Georgia, and thank you for that, but also this is not the one-way cooperation. What we say that Georgia, as well as the Ukraine, for example, I want to also mention, serve as a battleground for our northern neighbor for testing the novelties in cybersecurity. So now Russians testing even the military and conventions, already 2 conventional weapons in 2 years. But specifically, last decade was the battleground for Russians to test their novelties, their TTPs within the cybersecurity, and then try to reshape them, try to redevelop some cybersecurity measures and tools for more scaled attacks. And we found out several cases when the activities and APT campaigns, which were like a cyber campaigns, mostly affiliated with the Russian Federation and also the China affiliated APT groups, been actively using the tools against EU institutions and for US, for example. And these tools were 5 or 7 years before used in Georgia. So, of course, within the less scale, within the smaller impact, but still. So just this to mention, that's why it's very important for the information sharing, and that's also very important to see how the capacities of the malign state actors have been working on and developing, testing this on a very small portion, then going to the bigger one. So that's why international cooperation is very important in this direction, and it's one of the priorities for Georgia to firstly, subjectively, for example, try to attract international community's attention, despite it's not needed at all in the cyber because our partners are helping us a lot, but still to have more attention on that, and also to give them the ability to observe and monitor the campaigns and the tools used during these campaigns, and then better be prepared for the future attacks, because we've seen that these are already mentioned, what I mentioned, used later on within the campaigns for the attacking the US or EU infrastructure. So that's one of the key fields. The other one is what we have in the cybersecurity priority for Georgia is the intensive capacity building and workforce development, which is a huge problem, I know, for everyone. And I'm really happy to see in Romania that it's a very actively engaging the other professionals in the field. Also, universities start lots of programs within the cyber, and I'm really keen on that Georgia would follow Romania's and also Poland does very good things regarding this in terms of the workforce development, in terms of the having, because there is no cybersecurity specialist enough for the cybersecurity risk environment, what we have within the business sector as well as the state. So the cybersecurity specialist shortage is something very crucial and critical challenge nowadays. So that happens with Georgia. I think it's moreover problematic with Georgia because we're the small country, so much smaller than Romania, and that's why within the smaller community, you have, of course, the smaller amount of the specialists within any field, but with cyber specifically. And that's why it's the strategy of Georgia is also very actively tries to develop and set the direction of this domain. And also one of the key things, what I mentioned, the country is under the occupation almost 30 years with the Russian occupation, and that's why we still have the thing that it's not just that Russia is our main threat within the cyber as well, but also the we are in the ongoing war situation with Russia. So despite the two so-called republics occupied by Russia, Abkhazia and Samachablo, which they call the South Ossetia, but it's just a artificially derived term. Usually it's a Samachablo, it's a Georgian name of the territory where the noble Georgian families lived, but the Russians created this term South Ossetia in the beginning of the 20th century because they had the people lived behind the Caucasus, and they call it North Caucasus, North Ossetia. So they somehow created the artificial ties that there are two people, there are one people divided by Caucasus Mountains, and one lives in Russia, the other one's living in Georgia. But in that time there was only toponymic change. There was no single, there was a census in 1911, and in 100 years ago, there was no single Ossetian person living in that territory. So, and when Soviets came, they started this movement. So that's kind of a discourse in the history, but when I'm saying these two territories are occupied and still under the Russian control, so that's why our any kind of security strategy, national security strategy as well, and the cybersecurity strategy is also developed in a way that countries in a war situation, because we constantly have the borderization, they constantly, so-called administrative border, they're moving it with the force, despite we have the OSCE monitoring mission there. So why I'm describing the situation, that the country is under the ongoing occupation, it's a constant occupation, so it comes with cyber as well, and it's more visible in cyber because we have the constant cyber offensive operations from the Russian side, allegedly, because the attribution is not easy, but within this direction we could definitely see that, considering the interest of the political and context, there will be some other countries attacking Georgia, and despite always the cyber campaigns are accompanying some political or some this kind of occupational stuff, like when there is some kind of things happening with these administrative borders, usually the state institutions of Georgia are somehow attacked in the cyber domain, and our special services and agencies specifically working on the cyber, they mostly try to do the 70 or 80% of attribution, and now it's clear about the APT group engagement there. So we can say that there are Russians and Kremlin, pro-Kremlin APT groups are doing this. So what I'm saying, this pillar is very important, that we are not like any European country in terms of developing our cyber infrastructure and securing the country in terms of looking at the trends, looking at the things which are for the future. We have to do that as well. But on the other hand, we have to worry about the ongoing cyber things, which never stops. So that's something what gives the Georgia somehow really challenging situation. And in addition to that, we don't have to omit the cyber criminal, which is not politically affiliated, which is not something about our threat or malign state actor will attack or not. Even some Georgians would do, maybe some Europeans do. I mean, cyber criminals are everywhere. So cyber criminal is one of the main things where citizens struggle. So citizens might not be struggling when they see, for example, some critical infrastructure failure, if it's not affecting them directly, but within the cyber criminal, everyone might be affected. So just getting some phishing email and just clicking on something, and you are not having any kind of money on your account, and that's what you struggle mostly, and all the other things wrote in the strategy of the national cybersecurity doesn't care, and it doesn't mean nothing for you because you're a citizen and you care about your own belongings and your own infrastructure, so-called. So that's something what's also very problematic. But I also want to say that specifically the national security is the priority for Georgia, and cybersecurity is part of the national security, which is not the fact in many other countries. For example, in Western Balkan countries I work in, some of them, they have the main trends and main challenges within the cybersecurity. They have the cyber criminal, what I mentioned, because they don't have this issue that cybersecurity is not part of the national security for them, because they have, some of them are NATO countries, some of them are not, but they have already established so-called ecosystem in the region, that they're not having national security issue in the scale what Georgia have, for example, now, and of course the Ukraine. So cybersecurity in Georgia is a part of the national security, ecosystem, and that's why it's taken on a highest level. So that's something what differs Georgia from the many European maybe countries where the cyber is governed and overseen by the sometimes civilian entities, sometimes non-civilian, but in Georgia we have a mixed, but mostly it's run by this security agency, state security service, because it's part of the national security.
Georgi, I know that your country has the status of a candidate for acceding the EU. I was wondering, is the legal framework or the strategies, are they being inspired by the EU strategies in some way? In cybersecurity, you know, the EU has a new cybersecurity strategy. It recently developed the NIS2 directive that is going to be enforced in the member states. How about Georgia?
Regarding the EU relations within the cyber, it's a very important question because apart from the strategy, Georgia has the legislation within the cybersecurity developed back in 2011, 12, these years. And what we found out that at that time there was no holistic approach in the EU for the cybersecurity. So that's something what was developed in Europe a bit later when in 2016 the NIS directive, NIS, so-called NIS directive arrived. So, but we had very good cooperation with the European Union. We had the twinning projects. European Union twinning projects in many directions, and one of the things was cybersecurity. And Austrian and Lithuanian colleagues were engaged very actively, and I think Poland as well in some extent. Twinning project was about the harmonization of the Georgian cybersecurity responsible entities within the European Union entities, and just to have the same legislative, not the framework, but at least the terms, at least the understanding of the cyber ecosystem to be the same. I'm telling about the 10 years ago what was happened when Georgia was associated member, when we signed that associate agreement with the European Union. Later on in 2016, when the NIS directive came up, Georgia, and there was in association agreement, there was a list in annex of the laws which Georgia has to fulfill in terms of getting closer to the European Union legislative framework. And in 2016, when the NIS directive came up, Georgia insisted, I would say, because there was some negotiations I was part of as well. Georgia tried to and insisted, and there was demand from Georgia that update the annex and put the NIS directive there. So just to have this legal obligation as well. So that was one positive sign in this direction. Despite I would be negative in terms of evaluating how this implementation of the NIS directive happened in Georgia, because the legislative framework was mostly based on the ISO international standard 27 series. So it made some entities were not flexible into moving from the ISO-oriented security requirements and standards, making it as a national standard. From that to the NIS directive, which is not contradictory at all, but still in the mindset of the people still is there, either we have to choose NIS, either or the ISO, which is not the fact, I would say, which is not contradictory at all. You can use both in the same way if you are wisely and properly doing that. That's actually what I'm trying to do with the many organizations, giving them possibility to use the management system of the ISO, but within the requirements and within the control set of the security controls, you can use the NIS directive thing. So that's very easy to, or the vice versa. So that's very easy to combine, but that was not done well, I would say, in Georgia. So later on, the NIS2 directive came up, and currently is Georgia moving on the way that to fully reflect despite it's not the directly asked from the European Union. We have lots of requirements from the European Union when we get candidacy in December last year, and we were all happy with that. But there is no first priority for Georgia now to fulfill these requirements, and specifically within the cybersecurity, but for the people working in cybersecurity, it's very important. So I would say the legislative framework in Georgia now within the cyber is not fulfilling the NIS directive completely. I would say some parts are fulfilled, but it needs comprehensive and holistic view to have. And that's what we really lack now currently. And I do believe that the version of the strategy now is developing that will be 2025, 2028 or 9. It's 3 or 4 years. That will be one of the, not one, but main priority to have responsible entities for harmonizing the NIS2 directive, Georgian legislation to the NIS2 directive. That would be a very, very useful one. But apart from this process, we are not something isolated from the European Union. We are very constantly and very actively cooperating with ENISA, despite it's the agency responsible for EU institutions cybersecurity. But still, about the capacity building, our agencies are very actively invited to the ENISA events. Also, I got some kind of engagement with ENISA before. It was the thing that only EU member country citizens could be engaged in some activities within the ENISA, but now I see really good moves in that direction. I was invited in a couple of the events, and I think it's because of the candidacy, and it's because of the European Union thinks that Georgia is much closer now than ever. So that's also very good in cybersecurity perspective. Also, the new recently with together with the NIS2 directive released critical entities resilience directive (CER), which is also very important, which have been considered while developing the law on critical infrastructure in Georgia, which is under development now. It's drafted already, and it goes through the procedure within the parliament. So that's what I'm saying, that maybe the approach from Georgia, it's something within the cyber and getting closer to the European Union guidelines and standards is not, how to say, it's not holistic. It's something more fragmented from the different entities and different players. Even sometimes personalities are the trigger for moving and for shifting something to the EU ones. But I think it's just a matter of time, and more cybersecurity activities will be linked and tied and considered European Union experience in this direction than it was in the last years. So I think we are in a good way in this direction, and I would definitely say that the Euro-Atlantic Resilience Center would play a good role in this direction when Georgia, I hope that it will be sooner, will be officially accepted and officially cooperating with the center. At the state, I'm the associated expert, but I'm also keen that officially state representatives should be there. So it will be also very good, not only for the cyber perspective, but overall the resilience perspective of the European Union in the region, and Georgia is a part of the region, and hopefully the European Union soon.
You mentioned the importance of international cooperation earlier. Could you tell us some concrete ways that Georgia and the EU member states could cooperate so that we could increase cybersecurity mutually?
So within as it's happening within the other sectors, so the problem what we have now is that the European Union, after the association agreement, which was in 2013, as I remember, 13-14, already 10 years, and lots of opportunities created from the European Union within the different domains, industries, businesses in Georgia. But the problem is that the requirements for the participation within the open markets, or having the move of the goods and moving even the workforce, the lack of the communication, what I found the real problem here, maybe from the Georgian government side, but also from I think from the EU was also a bit passive thing, that we signed the association agreement, but there was no push for use and for implementing the things and the benefits what came up with the association agreement. So one of the key things was that Georgian businesses were not ready to get and to find the new ways to go to the European market. So because of the requirements, because of the standards, and when you work in the environment of post-Soviet, and you all passed this post-socialistic thing, but it was 30 years ago for you, but for us was not as smooth, because we were still under the Russian influence, occupation, and so on. Coming from that environment was not easy for Georgian business to get through the regulations, standards that EU demand, and also for the distance as well. It plays a role within just taking the goods from Georgia to Europe, for example. It's like infrastructurally, it's not feasible in terms of the benefits, in terms of the calculating what will be the cost for that, and so on. So if you're providing some product for a certain price in Georgia, in Europe you have to have the different price, because your logistic things are increasing the price. So that's the things made challenging for Georgian businesses, and that's why it was not easy to use European Union benefits like in a full scale. So, but now come back to the cyber. That's the cybersecurity. I would say the cybersecurity cooperation within the European Union is more niche thing rather than the other business industries. But within the governmental cooperation, let's start with that. The governmental cooperation is very actively done now. But it's, as I mentioned, the twinning projects are helping. That 2 countries selected by within the period of 3 years by the European Commission, and they're assisting Georgian state institutions within the cybersecurity resilience. But that's to my extent is I also mentioned that, and I'm also telling our colleagues in European Commission, our colleagues in Georgia, that this is not the good way of doing. I mean, that was a good way 10 years ago, but paying a lot of attention to the public sector and omitting the academia, omitting the business, and omitting all other parts of domain that are non-governmental is something what it's not the good way to do, because as we see in a government where is a very the process is, I think it goes very slowly. That one first thing, and the other one is bureaucratic stuff. Also the turnover of the people, so lots of people leaving public sector, going to the private or leave the country. So the institutional capacity is not as much as it could be from the side of the EU. So they are helping to build the capacity of one institution, and day after this institution is not within that capacity, because the people who were trained and who were enforced and enhanced, they left the institution. So what I'm saying, the overall helping and choosing several and specific domain and specific entities for capacity building is not the best way of assisting. And more help to the sector, for example, when we see in the sector there are business, there are the NGO, there are public, there are academia, and helping the sector overall would be more beneficial, because if the people move between or among the entities, they still stay in sector. If you're helping energy sector, no matter if there is a state electricity or there is a public station or private energy company or state regulator, these people would stay in the sector any time. So this would I suggest, and I also suggest this to our colleagues and the counterparts. And within this direction, one of the key things is information sharing. So we know that all the Georgian cyber responsible security agencies, they cooperate with the partners, with Romanians, of course, with Polish, with all the European Union countries, but this is something like done on a everyday operational level, but this is something about how to treat and how to deal with the post-incident things. So about the preventive measures, you need the information sharing for the threats, about the indicators, and about the surfaces, about the patterns, what is doing. So what I mentioned, that the Georgia served as a battleground for the cyber campaigns, and that's the experience European Union might be using. And also vice versa. For example, some cybersecurity campaign and attacks going on, I don't know, somewhere in Luxembourg or somewhere in Spain, which is not logically tied and linked to Georgian context, but we never experienced this kind of attack because we don't have such infrastructure like in Spain and Luxembourg. We don't have such even some industry which is very actively developed in that region, but not in us. But it's our future. In 10 years, maybe we'll have the same infrastructure. So what I'm saying, the diversity of cyber campaigns depend on the diversity and the level of the development of these several sectors, and that's why European Union and Georgia might be experiencing different types of cyber campaigns. So that's why information sharing is very crucial and very beneficial for both of us, getting because at the end of the year, not year, but at the end of the decade or something, we aim to be the members of the European Union. So getting closer will make, and this process will enhance both Georgia and European Union, and later on it will be the one enhanced community. So that's something what we want to achieve in this direction. And apart from the information sharing stuff, there is also very important thing regarding the cybersecurity education and educational campaigns. It's not about the awareness of the overall citizens, but specific professional education. And I also want to mention here that in Georgia it's very popular now that the university degrees, of course, the cybersecurity programs are actively developing, and we just recently created the cybersecurity master program, and it's very nice. Cybersecurity, no, not cyber, it's a national security and technologies. So, and it means that the cybersecurity portion is very high in that, intelligence, open source intelligence, and I'm responsible on that, on the cybersecurity component of the course, but we have very high ranked military and intelligence people teaching and giving direction to the other directions of this security overall. But this is one part. But in Georgia, what we see that the new generations, the Gen Z, for example, or what we call, they don't necessarily need the academic 4-year or 3-year studies. Specifically when it comes to the emerging directions, which is cybersecurity, which is software developing, AI, and so on. Here comes very actively the role of the vocational programs and vocational education. So if you have 6 months and 1 year intense education, sometimes it's even more than the 3 or 4 years academic education at the university. Of course, it depends. Of course, I'm not trying to disseminate that. I don't try, because I'm from the academia as well, and partially, but still vocational, we underestimate the role of vocational and the specific technical education methods. So that's also very important. And I also think that vocational programs, we can get the experience and learn from the European colleagues in terms of how to develop this and how to properly plan that this direction in terms of the cybersecurity, because we don't have as I mentioned, cybersecurity market is the one, and we don't have cybersecurity market in Georgia. You don't have cybersecurity market in Romania. The cybersecurity market is the one for everyone. So the only thing is like, and only difference that we might be living in Georgia, you might be living in Romania and other countries in the Europe, but still the domain is the one and the market is the one. With remote and with hybrid working attitude is something that doesn't mean where you are. So that's why I'm saying that getting some support and assistance from the European Union in this direction because it's also addressing when you're addressing the cybersecurity professionals shortage and skills development challenge, you address it for yourself when you do it. So no matter of what country does it or what region or what institution does it, you do it for community, because when you do it, it's not just someone works for you and your problems to solve, but it's just generally increasing the situation because it's everyone's problem. And I was reading that in the UK there is like a 600,000 unfilled cyber positions in the last year. I read that in the US in 2022, by the way, there was a 3.5 million positions announced specifically in cyber, and almost 60% were unfilled. So the thing that what's the stage, what the scale we can work on in this direction specifically, and also it's very important that the cybersecurity as a specialty and as a profession is also very actively developing. So 5 years ago, we had the guys who we called cybersecurity specialists. Now we have differentiating. Someone is a cybersecurity specialist, someone is the offensive one, someone is working on defensive measures, someone is doing strategy, someone is doing governance, someone helps with risk assessment, the other one's doing the audit. So now it's something very specific, sub-professions and sub-specialties in a cyber appear. So this is very good. This is very nice. That from my perspective, I see that this field is developing and developing very much faster than it used to be in the past. So I think that's one of the key things we should collaboratively develop and elaborate, but also at this moment we are still in the way that we need some kind of guidance from the European Union in this direction, because we are trying to enter the European Union, and that's why we should know the rules and we should know the guidelines, how these things are operating in this region, in this community.
I see a lot of ground for cooperation between Georgia and Romania and Georgia and the EU. And I wanted to take this opportunity to show a glimpse of Georgia, because unfortunately it's not a very well-known country here in Romania, although the only thing that separates us is the Black Sea. And we don't have a direct flight from Bucharest to Tbilisi. There's no commercial ferry across the Black Sea. So I wanted to ask you to say a couple of words about Georgia for our public, and to make them aware of the possibilities and opportunities that they can find there.
Yeah, that's a very good explanation, that we are living in two sides of the Black Sea, but we are not still having any, how to say, tangible cooperation among the countries. Okay, we cooperate in some fields, but it's just recently starting, so we don't have the history of cooperation even, but that's different historical stuff. But just to tell about Georgia, it's a country it's an ancient country with like a first ever Europeans being in Georgia. So it's like a 1.8 million years ago there were found the fossils. Now have been found the fossils and the artifacts from the people who were called Homo erectus that time. So we call it Zezva and Mzia. They're just a couple. So it's a traditional Georgian, how to say, the names. So one is very ancient, the other one is not much, but it's also some kind of comes with each other. So and in Dmanisi, it's near Tbilisi, 60 kilometers around, and first ever Europeans were settled in that area. The second thing in Georgia is about the wine. So we were found, there was found the artifacts and the things regarding 8,000 years ago, that 8,000 years ago we were doing the wine. So it means that 6,000 before Christ. So that also makes Georgia unique in terms of, and imagine these artifacts and these clay pots. We do the clay pot, and the wine is done in the clay pot and grounded in a deeply there and keeping for a 10, 15, 20 years, and people are getting that I will open this clay pot when my son gets married or daughter or so on. So that's very cultural thing in Georgia, and Georgia is considered official as a cradle of the wine. Also, one thing regarding the wine is thing that the sorts of the wine, it's also on the first place in the world in terms of the number of the sorts, different sorts. More than 500 different sorts have been, and it's completely different. It's not just mixing something, but completely different sorts of wine on a very small territory. And we are not massive wine producers. We are not something, we produce a lots of wine because of the country is small. But the amount of the wine and this culture of the wine is very historical and very much developed in Georgia. So also regarding the history of the country, so we are Orthodox Christians. We got this religion, and in the 4th century, 337, when the one of the Georgian kingdoms ruler found out that there is a Christianity, the religion existing, and they were pagans before, so they tried to convince him, and he agreed on some occasions. So it's like we are from the 4th century, we are Orthodox Christians, despite we were being somehow, of course, invaded and attacked by the different enemies that time, but still religion served as one of the key things. So if you ask Georgian, the religion and the wine culture are two main things. What was and of course the thing that we were always warriors, so we didn't have the peacetime at all. There was Georgia, there was a war, someone was invader and Georgians were fighting, and only the wine culture, only the what was the stable wine culture, the religion, which was affiliated like a Georgian, is usually the Christian, which is nowadays a bit shifted because we have a population, small population of Muslim, which are closely bordered with Turkey, and which is affection of the Turkish and Ottoman, not Turkish invasion back in time, but they're Georgians, but their religion have been shifted, but anciently there was the thing that Georgian is usually the Christian. So that was something narrative from the state side, that the religion religion saves us, and religion is the main motivator for, because I think that was also some kind of obvious reason, because of the invaders mostly were Muslims with different religions. So you needed, and I think the country needed some kind of thing that they are attacking us because of religion and not something occupational reasons or some territory. So that would, for the motivation that, oh, they are different people. If they were, for example, Russians, and that was used a lot, that when Russians came, that was not perceived within the people so harshly, because they say, oh, they're also Orthodox. So that, I think, badly influenced Georgian history. Then we all these centuries have the invaders with no non-Christian invaders, some people coming from Mongolia, like Persians and so on, and it was always perceived that all the people who are coming here are somehow, they want to destroy our religion and so on. And now with the Russians came up, and it was very smoothly, unfortunately, because of in the beginning of 19th century, when they just invaded Georgia without any means or something. But what I'm saying, currently Georgia is the small country. We are 4 million people. We are mostly we're developing country. We have, apart from the wine, we have very good like a agricultural stuff, specifically within the eastern part and western part of Georgia, within the closer to the Black Sea. We have the citrus, the tea, very good, developing and growing up, and agriculture is going on. And one main thing about Georgia is about the hydroelectric stations are the main thing in Georgia, because we have, as one of the last research revealed in the counting, 29,000 rivers in Georgia, which is a very, very big amount, a big number, because the country is very small. And despite we call it a river, maybe it's not even like a big river, but still. And we are very, very rich within the springs and within the mineral water. So we have up to 10 or even 12 mineral waters which are produced and spread and distributed within the world and the region as well, and within the different sorts of the cure, which helps with different kind of diseases and so on, which is something like mineral waters and the springs are also very actively. So just to say, we don't have the oil, unfortunately, we don't have the other things to such amount to have the kind of advantage in this direction, but mostly the current Georgian state was formed in 1918, by the way, when we got independence from the Russian Empire. And only 3 years we had the independence, because in 1921 we were reoccupied by Soviet Russia that time. Despite year before, in 1920, we signed the agreement between Democratic Republic of Georgia and Soviet Russia that we are neighbors and we never attack each other, and etc., etc. And in 8 months they came up with leading Georgians, by the way, Orjonikidze, who was the Stalin's, who was also Georgian, second hand in this direction. So we can't say that Russians occupy us, Georgians occupy us. So Soviet Georgians, of course, the Soviet and communists were mostly Russians, but the process was led by Georgians. And the state of the 3-year state, what we call, and we still celebrate the Independence Day of the 1918, when we got this independence, the 26th of May. And we had one of the progressive legislation in the world at that time. So in 1919 there was elections and municipal elections, as well as the parliamentary elections, and the lady was elected in the parliament in 1919, lady representing the ethnical minority from Muslim minority. She was elected in 1919, and we had the lady in the parliament who was Muslim and who was representing ethnical minority, and who was elected single-mandately, but personally elected to the parliament. So that was thing that when in many developed countries there was still no suffrage, there was still restriction for ladies to vote, so the women for vote. So the idea about this is very progressive one, but of course we lost everything in 1921, and when we regained that in 1991, when we had in 1990 we had the referendum about independence or so on, and the Soviet Union was already breaking up, and 90% of Georgians or 94% of Georgians voted for independence, and we voted for that, and we got the independence. So now we are 33 years old country in the nowadays, with lots of challenges, with lots of things. In the beginning, when we got independence, Russia used their power in terms of the taking away these two territories, what I already mentioned, Abkhazia and Samachablo, so-called South Ossetia, by force. Also, they triggered the civil war in Tbilisi, when the opposition was not happy with the elected government after getting independence. Imagine, after several months of getting independence, the opposition was not happy for the guy who was leader of the independence and liberation movement for 15 years, and who liberated Georgia from Soviet Union, who was 3 or 4 times captured and sent to Siberia by the Soviets and so on, tortured and so on. And a couple of months after, opposition went out. Somehow, in the opposition had the weapons, and you know what the weapons were? Not just the rifles and things, but even the tanks and the heavy weapons, which were directly given by the Russian military base, which was still in Georgia until 2004, because the Soviets had the military base and they kept there despite there was independence. So they triggered this war, and Tbilisi, there was a civil war and two ongoing wars in the region. So imagine what was the situation in the 90s. So we overcame, fortunately, despite we had also on that time, Russia was the only supplier for our electricity and for the gas as well. So they cut the electricity, they cut the gas for 3.5 years. There was no electricity in the country, there was no gas in the country. And I was a kid, I still remember some things. And there are 3 ongoing wars in the country, in capital, civil war, and 2 occupied territories, that separatist movement. So unfortunately, we overcome everything. And the beginning of 2000s, we get the new government. We expressed our will to join European Union, NATO, and we start moving fast. So we had the good reforms, pace as well. So just recently, like 10 years ago, the government changed. We are not happy with that now in terms of the pace of the moving towards to the European Union and NATO, as well as the other reforms. But in 2008, we had the referendum about joining EU and NATO, and most of the population, I think it was up to 80. It was 67, then it was 80. So 80% of the population wants to join, and then it was reflected in the constitution. We have written in the constitution, and one of the goals of Georgia state is joining the NATO and joining the European Union. And of course, it will be removed after we are there, and hopefully there will be soon. So now the country is like looking at the Western direction and trying to develop this, regain the status of the so-called corridor, which was on a Silk Route. So Georgia was always on the Silk Route because between the Caspian and the Black Sea, and we were kind of a corridor for the goods from Asia to Europe and vice versa. So now we're trying to regain this historical so-called position and the historical position of a node in the corridor for that, and use this opportunity to have same things, for example, within the Black Sea energy cable, which is under development currently, connecting with Romania, connecting with Europe, and getting energy, and not only energy, but also within the energy cable comes the ICT and internet cable as well. So connectivity, and also having the role of being on the edge of Europe and Asia. So that's something which is beneficial for Georgia. But on the other side, this is very attractive for the northern neighbor, who tries to have and to try to have the same influence what they had in the past. So that's a very tough period of Georgia now, to moving towards the European Union integration and on the way to NATO. But also to survive within this hectic context within the region, and also to think about the smooth development of the any domains and any directions. I mean, the civil society, public services, private academia, but on the other hand, worry about the national security. On the other hand, think about the deoccupation, which is the Russia is occupied, has been occupied Georgia, and it's constantly doing so. We are in a very tough period of time, and that's why I think the role for the Euro-Atlantic Resilience Center is getting crucial here, despite you might be not knowing that, how important is for Georgia is the getting there and to be part of the wider Black Sea policy and wider Black Sea agenda of the security, because the guaranteeing security in the Black Sea means security for Europe as well, and for security of the overall world, because it's something like the one of the hottest places currently, having war in Ukraine, and hopefully it will be ended soon with the good and everyone like waiting and expecting for the good results from Ukraine. So hopefully for that, and to make the secure and resilience region again what it used to be. So now what we see that the Georgia, and I'm summarizing that with the neighbors, we have we have Turkey, we have Armenia, we have Azerbaijan, and we have Russia. So with all the neighbors apart from the Russia, we have excellent relationships. So with Turkey, which is our strategic partner, despite there's some propaganda and narrative from the Kremlin that usually it's spread in the Georgian social network, that how come the Turkey should be our strategic partner when they were our enemies in the a past, which is of course not true in terms of they were Ottomans. They don't have now any connection with current Turkish state. It's completely different things. That's one thing. The other one is things change in history, and when we see that when we were in trouble in the 90s, Turkey helped a lot within the goods, within the economical stuff, within the everything. So Turkey and Azerbaijan helped us because Azerbaijan got the oil, and with no electricity and no gas, Azerbaijan helped us and now one of the main suppliers is Azerbaijan for Georgian gas and electricity. No, not electricity, gas, because electricity we have our own, and we even do it in export in Azerbaijan, by the way, in exchange of the oil. In Armenia as well, and some part of the northern part of Turkey also gets our electricity because we have lots of hydroelectric station, despite it needs more, because we could be a producer of twice more than Georgia consumes, and we can be exporter in a regional. So with Armenia, we have excellent relationship, and with Azerbaijan, and we also try to serve as a mediator within the conflict between these two states, our neighbors. And usually that's a historical fact as well, and that in 1918, before getting independence, there was a South Caucasus confederation for a couple of months, 6 or 7 months active, because there was no decision made of country independence. So when the Russian Empire fell in 1917 something, South Caucasus Confederation declared as an independent country, and the capital was Tbilisi, of course. So we, Armenia and Azerbaijan, 3 countries, lived in one state in 1917. So, and independence we declared in 1918 in the same days, 26, 27, and 28th March, May. In the same hall of the South Caucasus Sejm, which was the parliament that time. Because that was the legislative organ, legislative body for the South Caucasus Confederation, and so we are proud that Azerbaijan and Armenia declared independence in Tbilisi, in the building near the parliament currently, what we reside. So what I'm telling that we have very good relations with the neighbors, economically, politically, and the only neighbor we struggle now is who occupied our territory. So, and who is constantly providing and acts as a hybrid threat and constant threat to the Georgian government and Georgian state existing currently. So, and regarding the current cooperation with Romania, so we don't have a connection, we don't have the ferry boat which used to be there, we don't have, unfortunately, the direct flights with Romania, despite it would be quite easier. We recently re-established flights with Chisinau. It's a direct flight from Tbilisi to Chisinau, but I would say that I think it's already a time to have some kind of, not as intense within the flights like with what we have with Istanbul, because they're our main hubs for getting to the Europe, but maybe once or two times a flight a week for Bucharest would be good to make the connections, to invite lots of Romanian people to Georgia to come for tourism, as well as coming for Georgians to visit Romania and Bucharest. I love the city, so it's a very beautiful. But I also would love to have opportunity to see other parts of Romania, like Transylvania and all the others. I had a chance to go to Constanța, but I also want to explore the Romania in full. So the other part is that we all play rugby. So Romania and Georgia play rugby each other, and I think that we mostly know each other from that part. But still, it needs to develop the ties economically, strategically, and I think that's the role of the again the Euro-Atlantic Resilience Center, despite it's internationalized and it's not representing Romania officially, but still is the thing that having these kind of connections and having a sense of the and feeling that we own the region, so we own the wider Black Sea region. So in this process I see Romania as a leader and a driver, and we follow within that, because you are in the EU, you're in the NATO, and you are also very eager. I feel it on everyday meetings that Romania is eager to see Georgia in this process. So I would say that Romania is also a point of contact embassy for NATO in Georgia. So if Georgia wants something, we have the liaison office of NATO, but still, if there is something, point of contact embassy for NATO is Romania, together with the UK. So that also shows that Romania is really helping and assisting and tries to act as a big brother for Georgia in terms of getting back to the Europe, as we say, because we were part of the Europe historically, traditionally, despite distance plays a quite significant role, but still nowadays we can say that distance is not more important rather than the mental and like cultural closeness. So that's why we are getting back to Europe, but we try to be, and we hope that Romania will be playing the active role in this process. So that's something in a very nutshell.
Georgi,
Thank you for this wider glimpse that you made about Georgia, and for sure we believe that Georgian people have come such a long way, and you are such a resilient nation, because despite all the troubles, you're still on your way to the Euro-Atlantic family, and I really believe that you deserve to be fully integrated in the two organizations.
Thank you for such attitude and such expectation from us. Yeah, you're correct. We're resilient despite we lost lots of parts of the lands and etc. But nowadays, land doesn't mean anything. So the main idea is the people. So and the people and the state and the democratic process and the expressing yourself and working on development. So that's the community how to be developed. So it's not the time for the lands, it's not the time of the how bigger countries, how smaller is. It's about the mentality, it's about the mindset and the cultural and institutional development. So that's why I think we are on the good way, but we are still wishing to be more fast on this way, and it's not always on our side. It's not always our fault and share of responsibility. We consider the context, and we consider the context within the ongoing war against Ukraine, and also the context of EU expansion. And so we are still on the way, and we are still trying to be as fast as we can, because for us it's existential kind of a challenge to be part of Europe again, because only that would avoid us to be back to the Russian influence, and that would be for us something very active trigger to start a development more faster than now we do, because we are in the brink, and we are still developing, but developing in European Union community would be, of course, much faster, and much the quality of development also would be different. So that's why we see the membership. That's why we have in Constitution written that EU and NATO membership, it's something existential for Georgian security, and this security brings stability. Stability brings economic development, and economic development would bring the welfare and wealth for the humans and for the community living there. So that's what we are striving for.
Georgi, it's for sure that you love a lot and you are very enthusiastic to speak about your lovely country, very beautiful country. And I have to recognize that my favorite part in your presentation is the part with the wines. Great. 8,000 years ago. Very great. I think it's important to say that you have great landscapes, and Tbilisi is a very beautiful city. Congratulations for your country. Congratulations for your development and your country, and for yourself. It's for sure that you have to go forward to integrate in the and the NATO family. We are waiting for you. We are very interested to be together with us. Thank you for this interview. Thank you for all the information that you gave us. And we hope that your national security strategy, and especially in cybersecurity, to be very successful, and to meet again in a stronger context of your integration in the European family and NATO.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I hope that we will be more resilient and more secure together with Romania and with the European Union. Thank you very much.
Thank you.